The woman was dying, but she refused to stop walking. December sun hung low over the Arizona desert, painting the sand in shades of copper and rust. The kind of light that made everything look ancient, like the land itself was remembering things best left forgotten. Ayanna of the Chiricahua Apache moved through that light like a spirit, one foot dragging after the other, her shadow stretching long and thin behind her. On her back, strapped with rawhide and desperation, was a 5-year-old boy, Kime, her son, the only reason she was still breathing. She had been walking for 3 days. 3 days since she returned from gathering winter sage in the hills and found her village erased. 3 days since she discovered that the people who raised her, who took her back when a white man abandoned her pregnant and ashamed, were now just shapes beneath blankets of flies. 3 days since she learned that mercy was not a word the cavalry knew how to spell. The horse had died yesterday, collapsed mid-step, froth at its mouth, ribs pressing against hide like prison bars. Ayanna had cut what meat she could carry, wrapped it in the horse's own skin, and kept moving, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant seeing her father's face again, frozen in the expression he wore when the bullet found him. Surprise, just surprise, like he couldn't believe the world would be this cruel. She could believe it. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction. No trees, no shade, just rock and sand and the bones of things that had tried to cross and failed. Ayanna's water bladder was empty, had been empty since this morning. Her lips were cracked deep enough to bleed, and the blood dried before it could drip. Behind her, Kimi made a small sound, not crying anymore. He had stopped crying hours ago. That was worse. She adjusted the strap across her chest and kept walking. Fort McDowell. She was walking to Fort McDowell, 18 miles northwest, maybe 20. She wasn't sure anymore. The sun did strange things to distance when you were dying. But Fort McDowell was where Daniel had been stationed. Daniel Garrett, the white trader who had whispered promises in her ear when she was 17 and stupid. The man who said he would take her to California, that love didn't see color, that their baby would be the bridge between two worlds. The man who ran when the cavalry came looking for Apache sympathizers. She hadn't seen Daniel in 5 years. Didn't know if he was alive or dead or drinking himself stupid in some frontier saloon. But he had written her one letter delivered by a Mexican trader 3 years ago. Just one line at the bottom beneath excuses and apologies she didn't read. If something happens, come to the fort. I'll make it right. Ayanna didn't believe him, but she had nowhere else to go. The sun touched the horizon. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in minutes. Desert cold was different than mountain cold. It came from below, seeping up through the sand, turning the ground into a trap that stole heat from your blood. Ayanna's legs stopped working. She didn't fall. She just stopped, mid-step, like a clock winding down. Kimi stirred against her back. His voice was a dry whisper. "Mama." She tried to answer. Her throat clicked. No sound came out. "Mama, I'm cold." Ayanna closed her eyes. Behind her lids, she saw the village burning, saw the soldiers moving through smoke silhouettes against flame, saw one man standing apart from the others. Tall, broad-shouldered. He didn't raise his rifle, just stood there watching, like he was witnessing something he couldn't stop but couldn't look away from either. She had hated that man more than the ones who pulled triggers, because he had a choice, and he chose to do nothing. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on a rock outcropping, felt the stone tear skin from her palm. Kime made a frightened sound. She forced herself upright, took another step, then another. 17 miles to go, maybe 18. She would make it. She had to. Because if she didn't, Kim would die out here, and the cavalry would win. They would erase her son the way they erased her village, and there would be no one left to remember that her people had names, that they had loved, that they had mattered. The stars came out. The temperature kept dropping. Ayanna walked. 5 miles west, Thomas Garrett was counting fence posts. 147, 148, 149. He had counted them yesterday. The number hadn't changed. But Thomas counted them anyway because counting was better than thinking, and thinking led to places his mind shouldn't go. The ranch was small. 20 acres of hard pan dirt and stubborn grass wedged between rock formations that looked like God's broken teeth. The house was smaller. One room for living, one for sleeping, a cellar for storage. Thomas had built it himself 5 years ago after he stopped being Captain Thomas Garrett and became just Thomas. Just a man with a hammer and too much time to remember. He finished counting the fence posts, started counting the stones in the fire ring. 12 large ones, 37 small ones, same as yesterday, same as the day before. The sun was setting. Thomas watched it go down without feeling anything. The Arizona sky turned colors that would make a painter weep, but Thomas just saw light fading. Another day ending. Another night coming. The mathematics of survival. He went inside. The cabin smelled like wood smoke and coffee. Thomas had made a pot this morning and forgotten to drink it. It sat on the stove, thick and bitter. He poured a cup anyway. Drank it cold. Tasted like punishment. Good. His rifle hung on the wall. A Sharps carbine .52 caliber, the kind cavalry captains carried. Thomas looked at it the way some men looked at old lovers, with regret and recognition. He had cleaned it yesterday. He would clean it again tomorrow. The ritual mattered more than the function. On the table was a letter from the town of Silver Creek. The new mayor, a man named Henderson, who Thomas had never met, was requesting his presence at a Christmas social, wanted to welcome him to the community, build bridges, share fellowship. Thomas used the letter to start kindling for tomorrow's fire. He wasn't interested in fellowship. Fellowship required talking. Talking required explaining where he came from. And where he came from was a place called Canyon del Muerto, the Canyon of the Dead. November 1871. Thomas didn't talk about Canyon del Muerto. He checked the horses. 6 of them ranging from a 15-year-old mare to a 2-year-old colt with a white star on his forehead. Thomas knew their names, their temperaments, their bloodlines. He knew which one spooked at thunder and which one could ford a river without flinching. He knew them better than he had ever known the men in his cavalry unit. The mare Bess was limping. Thomas ran his hand down her foreleg, felt heat in the fetlock, swelling. She needed rest and a poultice. He made a mental note to ride into Silver Creek tomorrow for supplies. He had been avoiding it. The town made him feel like his skin didn't fit right. But Bess needed medicine. He fed the horses, returned to the cabin, ate jerky and hardtack standing at the counter, didn't bother with a plate. When you lived alone, manners were just performance for an audience of ghosts. Night came down hard. Thomas lit a lamp, sat at the table, opened the locked drawer. Inside was a small wooden box no bigger than a book. Thomas had made it himself, carved it from cedar, fitted the joints so precisely no light could enter. He had made it to hold something he couldn't throw away but couldn't look at without bleeding. He opened the box. Inside was a necklace. Turquoise stones, each one the size of a thumbnail strung on braided sinew. Apache work. Beautiful work. The kind of thing a mother might make for a daughter, or wear herself every day until it became part of her. Thomas had found it in the ashes at Canyon del Muerto, 5 years ago, the morning after. He didn't know who it had belonged to. Hadn't asked. Didn't want names. Names made it worse. But he had picked it up anyway while his commanding officer was shouting orders and his fellow soldiers were joking about how many hostiles they had cleared. Thomas had closed his fist around the necklace and felt the stones cut into his palm. He had kept it, as penance, as proof. Now he stared at it in the lamplight. The turquoise was still bright, beautiful, untouched by the fire that had taken its owner. Thomas closed the box, locked it, put it back in the drawer. Then he lay down on his bed, still dressed, boots still on, and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion dragged him under. He dreamed of fire, of screaming, of a girl maybe 16 looking at him with eyes that asked a question he couldn't answer. Why didn't you stop them? He woke at dawn sweating, the answer still caught in his throat. Because I was afraid. The meeting happened the way most disasters do, by accident. by proximity, by the simple fact that two people were in the same wrong place at the same wrong time. Thomas was riding to Silver Creek following the eastern trail that cut through a series of dry washes and stone arroyos. Bess's medicine couldn't wait another day. The mare was favoring the leg badly now. Thomas had her on a lead rope riding his gelding, a sorrel named Red, with a disposition like burnt coffee. The morning was clear, cold, the kind of cold that made your breath visible and your fingers ache. Thomas rode in silence, watching the ground for snake holes and his mind for memories that tried to surface. He almost missed them. A sound, faint, could have been wind through rock, could have been a bird, but something about it made Thomas pull Red to a stop. He listened. There, again. A child's voice, crying. Thomas sat very still. His first instinct was to keep riding. Whatever was making that sound wasn't his problem. He had learned painfully that getting involved in other people's suffering only led to more suffering. Better to keep moving. Better to stay separate. But the crying continued. High-pitched, desperate, the sound a child makes when they think no one is coming. Thomas cursed under his breath, turned Red toward the sound. He found them in a shallow ravine hidden behind a stand of Palo Verde trees. A woman, Apache from the way she was dressed, buckskin tunic, beaded moccasins, her hair in two long braids. She was unconscious, lying on her side, one arm stretched toward a small boy who sat next to her, crying. The boy was maybe 5 years old, mixed blood, brown skin but blue eyes, the kind of eyes that didn't happen by accident. Thomas dismounted, slowly, kept his hands visible. The boy saw him and went quiet. Not calm, terrified. The kind of quiet that meant run or fight, and the boy was too small for either. Easy, Thomas said. His voice came out rough. He didn't use it much. I'm not going to hurt you. The boy didn't move, just stared. Those blue eyes were unnatural, too bright, like someone had taken sky and put it in a face that wasn't meant to hold it. Thomas approached, knelt beside the woman, checked her pulse. Faint, thready, skin hot, fever. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. She hadn't had water in days. He looked at the boy. What's your name? The boy's chin trembled. He didn't answer. Thomas tried again, softer. I'm Thomas. What's your name, Kami? The voice was barely a whisper. Kami. Thomas nodded. That's a good name. Is this your mother? Kami nodded. Thomas looked at the woman again. She was young, mid-20s, pretty in the way that meant she had probably broken hearts without meaning to. But now she looked like death. Hollow cheeks, dark circles, the kind of hunger that came from running. He should ride away. That was the smart move. Apache woman alone with a child this far from any settlement. That meant trouble. That meant she was fleeing something. That meant getting involved would paint a target on his back. But Kami was looking at him, those impossible blue eyes full of hope that hurt to see. Please, mister. Kami's voice cracked. Help my mama. Thomas closed his eyes. Saw another child, different place. 5 years ago, a little girl, maybe 7, staring at him while the world burned around her, asking the same question with her eyes. He had walked away from that child. He opened his eyes. All right, he said. All right. He lifted the woman. She was lighter than she should be, all bone and desperation. He carried her to Red, draped her across the saddle. Kami followed silent, now watching everything. Thomas tied the woman in place, took a blanket from his saddlebag and wrapped it around Kim, lifted the boy onto Red's back in front of the woman. Hold on to the saddle horn, Thomas said. Don't let go. Kami grabbed the horn with both hands. Thomas took Red's reins and started walking, back toward the ranch, away from Silver Creek, away from medicine for Bess, toward something he couldn't name but recognized anyway. Trouble. They were an hour from the ranch when the woman woke up. Thomas heard her gasp, felt Red sidestep nervously. He turned. The woman was conscious. Barely. Her eyes were open, unfocused, scanning. Then they locked on Thomas. and everything changed. She moved fast. Too fast for someone who should be dead. Her hand went to her belt, came up with a knife. Small, bone handle, sharp enough to open a throat. She pressed it against Thomas's neck. Red stopped walking. Kimi made a frightened sound. "Mama, no." The woman ignored him. She was breathing hard, swaying. The knife shook in her hand but didn't move from Thomas's jugular. "Let us go," she said. Her English was accented, thick but clear. "Let us go or I kill you." Thomas didn't move, didn't reach for a weapon, just stood there feeling the blade against his skin. "Your boy is dying," Thomas said. Quiet, factual. "You can kill me after I help him, but if you kill me now, he dies too." "That what you want?" The woman's eyes flickered to Kimi. The boy was pale, shaking. The fever had him now. She lowered the knife, but didn't put it away. "Why you help?" she asked. "What you want? Nothing." Liar. White men always want. Thomas looked at her, really looked. Her face was familiar in a way he couldn't place, like a song you heard once and forgot the words too, but remembered the melody. "I have food," he said, "water, medicine, but I don't have patience. Come with me or don't. Choose." The woman stared at him, weighing, calculating, looking for the lie. She didn't find one. Or maybe she was just too tired to care. She sheathed the knife, wrapped her arms around Kimi. "If you hurt him," she said, "I will kill you slow." "Fair enough," Thomas said. He started walking again. She didn't stop him. The ranch appeared as the sun reached its peak. Small, isolated, the kind of place you went to disappear. Thomas led Red to the hitching post, untied the woman. She slid off the horse, stumbled, caught herself. Pride kept her upright. Barely. Kimi was unconscious again. Thomas lifted him. The boy was burning up. "Inside," Thomas said. The woman didn't move. She stood at the threshold looking at the cabin like it might be a trap. Her hand was on her knife again. Thomas didn't argue, just carried Kimi inside. Put him on the bed. His bed. The only bed. The woman followed. Slowly. Watching everything. Looking for exits. For weapons. For betrayal. Thomas went to the stove, started a fire, put water on to boil, pulled willow bark from his supply cabinet, morphine from his medical kit. The kit was Army issue. He had stolen it when he left, figured he had earned it. He crushed the willow bark, mixed it with water, turned to the woman. She was sitting on the edge of the bed holding Kim's hand, whispering something in Apache. A prayer, maybe, or a promise. "This will bring the fever down," Thomas said, holding out a cup. The woman looked at it, at him. "What is medicine?" "White man medicine, but it works." She took the cup, sniffed it. Her face tightened. "I use my way. Your way isn't working." Thomas kept his voice level. "Look at him. He's dying. You want to save him or you want to prove a point?" Her eyes flashed. Anger, hate, but under it fear. "You know nothing," she said. "I know dying." Thomas said, "I've seen it enough. That boy has hours, maybe less. Give him the medicine, or don't. But decide." Silence. The woman looked at Kem, at his flushed face, his shallow breathing. She lifted the cup to his lips. Kem drank, coughed, drank more. Thomas brought blankets, piled them on, stoked the fire higher. The room filled with heat. The woman didn't leave Kem's side, didn't eat, didn't drink. Just sat there holding his hand, humming something low and rhythmic. Thomas gave her space, sat at the table, cleaned his rifle, not because it needed cleaning, because his hands needed something to do. Hours passed. The fever broke at sunset. Kimi's breathing steadied. The flush faded from his cheeks. He opened his eyes, saw his mother, smiled. "Mama." The woman's face crumpled. She pressed her forehead to his, whispered thank you to gods Thomas didn't know. Thomas stood, went outside, gave them privacy. He stood on the porch watching the sky turn purple, red, gold. The colors were still beautiful. He still didn't feel anything, but maybe that was all right. He had saved one life today. That was more than he had done 5 years ago. Morning came with the smell of coffee. Thomas woke on the floor, wrapped in a saddle blanket, his rifle beside him. He had given up the bed. Seemed right. The woman was awake, sitting by the window. Her knife was in her hand. She hadn't slept. He could tell by the shadows under her eyes. Kame was still asleep, breathing easy, color back in his face. Thomas stood, stretched. His back complained. The floor was harder than he remembered. He went to the stove, made coffee, fried bacon, cooked beans, set 3 plates on the table. The woman watched him, silent. "Eat," Thomas said. "I don't take from white men." Thomas shrugged. "Suit yourself. But the boy needs food." She looked at Kame, at the plate. Her jaw tightened, but she stood, walked to the table. Saturday. Thomas pushed a plate toward her. She stared at it like it might bite. Kame woke up, saw the food. His eyes went wide. "Mama, I'm hungry." The woman's resistance cracked. She pulled Kame onto her lap, fed him beans with her fingers. He ate like he hadn't seen food in weeks. Because he hadn't. Thomas ate in silence. The woman ate too, not looking at him, but eating. Kame finished first, looked at Thomas with those strange blue eyes. "Are you a cowboy?" Mr. Thomas almost smiled. Almost. "Rancher. What's different? Cowboys move. Ranchers stay." Kame thought about this, seemed satisfied. The woman spoke. First time she had initiated. Her voice was rough. "Where we are, my ranch, 5 miles west of Silver Creek." She went very still. "Silver Creek, you know it?" "No, but I hear name. Where Cavalry stay." Thomas's stomach tightened. "Used to. Not anymore. Fort's been closed 3 years." She relaxed, slightly. Kame tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mama, what's cavalry soldiers, baby? Like the bad men?" Her face went hard. "Yes, like bad men." Kame looked at Thomas. "Are you bad man?" Before Thomas could answer, the woman's eyes went wide. She was staring at the wall behind him, at the photograph hanging there. Thomas in uniform, standing with his cavalry unit. 18 men in crisp blues, rifles in hand, the American flag behind them. Taken in 1870. Before everything. The woman stood. So fast her chair fell over. You are cavalry." Thomas didn't move. "Was. Your people killed my people." "I know. You killed my father." Thomas met her eyes. "Maybe." The word hung in the air like smoke. The woman pulled her knife. Her hand was shaking, not from weakness, from rage. Kame started crying. "Mama, what's wrong?" The woman's breathing was ragged. She looked at Thomas like she was trying to memorize his face, like she was digging through memory. Then her eyes changed. Recognition hit like lightning. "You," she whispered. "You were there." November, 1871. Canyon del Muerto. Thomas's blood turned to ice. "How do you know that name?" His voice came out strangled. "Because I was there." The woman's voice broke. "I was gathering medicine, in hills. When I come back, my village was burning. Everyone dead. My father, my mother, my brother, all dead." She took a step closer. The knife shook in her hand. "I saw you, standing by fire. You didn't shoot, but you didn't stop them." Thomas couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "I was 17, she said. Pregnant. My husband was a white traitor. He run when cavalry come. Leave me. My family take me back. But they die that night. All of them." She was crying now, tears cutting tracks through dust on her face. "You stood there. You watched. You let them die." Thomas felt something break inside him, something he had been holding together with wire and whiskey and distance. "Yes," he said. "I did." The woman raised the knife. Kame screamed. "Mama, no." She looked at her son, at Thomas, at the knife. Then she lowered it, picked up Kame, turned toward the door. Thomas found his voice. "The desert will kill you. Better desert than coward who watched children burn. She walked out. Thomas stood frozen, watching through the window as she carried Kim into the wasteland. The morning sun was bright, merciless. He could see them for a long time, growing smaller, vanishing into heat shimmer. He turned, walked to his drawer, opened the box. The turquoise necklace gleamed. He had taken it from Cañon del Muerto, from the ashes of a people he helped destroy. He had kept it as punishment, as memory. Now he knew whose it was. Thomas closed his fist around the stones, felt them cut his palm. Outside, snow began to fall. Impossible snow. Arizona didn't get snow in December, but there it was. White flakes against blue sky, like the world itself was mourning. Thomas stood at the window, watching a woman and child walk into a blizzard, knowing they wouldn't survive, knowing it was his fault, knowing he had a choice. He grabbed his coat. 30 minutes later, Thomas found them a quarter-mile from the ranch. The woman had collapsed. Kime was trying to pull her up, crying, begging. Thomas dismounted. The woman saw him, tried to stand. Couldn't. "Please," she whispered. "Not to him, to the sky, to anyone listening. Don't let my son die because of my pride." Thomas knelt, lifted Kime, then her. "You can stay," he said, "until the snow melts. 3 weeks, maybe 4. After that I'll take you wherever you want." "Why?" Her voice was broken. "Why help enemy?" Thomas looked at her, at Kime, at the snow falling on desert sand. "Because 5 years ago I didn't, and I've been dying ever since." He carried them back to the ranch. The woman didn't fight, and Thomas didn't let go. Inside he set rules. She would work for her keep, cook, mend, help with horses. He would provide shelter, food, protection. They didn't have to talk about Cañon del Muerto. They didn't have to forgive. They just had to survive. The woman agreed, not because she wanted to, because Kime needed her to. Her name, Thomas learned, was Ayanna. It meant eternal blossom. He didn't tell her his name meant twin. They were strangers bound by blood neither wanted to claim. And outside the impossible snow kept falling. The rules were established without negotiation. Thomas stood in the center of the cabin, his back to the fire, his shadow stretching long across the floorboards. Ayanna sat on the edge of the bed, Kime sleeping beside her, one hand resting on the boy's chest to feel him breathe. The snow outside had thickened. Through the window the world was white and formless. "You stay until the snow melts," Thomas said. His voice was flat, factual. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Winter in the desert doesn't last. Ayanna didn't look at him. She watched Kime's chest rise and fall. After that, Thomas continued, "I take you to Fort McDowell, or wherever you want. You choose." "Why Fort McDowell?" Her question caught him off guard. She had barely spoken since he carried them back. Now her eyes were on him. Dark. Unreadable. "You said you were headed there," Thomas said. "Before you collapsed. Figured you had reason." Ayanna's jaw tightened. "My reason is dead, like everything else." Thomas waited. She didn't elaborate. "Then I take you somewhere else." "But you work while you're here. I need help with the horses, with cooking." "My shoulder's been bad," since he paused. "Since a long time." "What happened to shoulder?" Thomas's hand went to his left shoulder unconsciously. "A bullet. Friendly fire. Fellow soldier got jumpy during a night patrol. Shot me instead of the coyote." Ayanna's expression didn't change. "Karma. Maybe." Silence filled the space between them. The fire crackled. Outside, wind pushed against the cabin walls. "The deal is simple," Thomas said. "You cook, you mend, you help where I need help. I provide shelter, food, protection. We don't—" He hesitated. "We don't talk about that night." Ayanna's eyes flashed. "Which night? The night your people killed mine? Or the night you stood there and watched Thomas's face remain stone?" "Both." "You think not talking makes it go away? No. But talking doesn't bring them back either." Ayanna looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Sharp, Final. I stay until snow melts. I work. But after we are nothing. You understand nothing. Understood. One more thing, Ayanna said. She stood, walked to where Thomas kept his rifle on the wall. She pointed at it. This stays where I can see. Always. You point at my son, I kill you. I don't point guns at children. You point guns at their mothers. Thomas flinched, the first real emotion she had pulled from him. Fair enough, he said. Ayanna returned to the bed, lay down beside Keem, fully dressed, knife in her hand. Thomas took his bedroll to the floor. He had slept in worse places, on frozen ground, in mud, next to men who snored like wounded buffalo. A wooden floor was luxury. He didn't sleep that night. Neither did she. They lay in the darkness, two strangers bound by grief listening to the snowfall and a small boy breathe. The first week was hostile coexistence. Thomas woke at 5 every morning, force of habit from cavalry days. He would build up the fire that had burned down to embers overnight, start coffee and step outside to check the weather. The snow had stopped after 2 days, but the temperature stayed brutal, 20 degrees at dawn, the kind of cold that made your teeth ache. By the time he returned, Ayanna was always awake. She never slept past first light. She would be sitting cross-legged on the bed, hands in her lap, eyes closed, praying or meditating. Thomas didn't ask which. Keemy would still be asleep. The boy slept hard the way children do when they finally feel safe. His small face peaceful, one hand tucked under his cheek. Breakfast was silent. Thomas would cook. Bacon when they had it. Beans always. Hardtack softened in bacon grease. It wasn't good food, but it was fuel. Ayanna would watch him cook. Her eyes tracked every movement, looking for threat, for deception. After 3 days she started setting the table, not offering, not asking permission, just doing it. On the 4th day she took the spatula from his hand. I cook, she said. You burn everything. Thomas stepped back. Let her. She was right. Everything he cooked came out charred or raw. No middle ground. Ayanna, though. She cooked like she did everything else, efficiently. No wasted motion. She made the bacon crisp without turning it to leather, made the beans soft without turning them to mush. Even the coffee tasted better when she made it. Thomas didn't thank her. Thanking implied debt. Instead, he just ate. And when he finished, he washed his own plate. Small gestures, careful distance. Keemy was the bridge between them. The boy woke on the 2nd day feeling stronger. The fever was gone. His eyes were bright. He was hungry, endlessly hungry. Thomas had never seen a child eat so much. During breakfast on day 5, Keemy looked at Thomas with those unsettling blue eyes. "Mister, can you teach me to ride a horse?" Thomas glanced at Ayanna. She had gone very still, fork halfway to her mouth. "Ask your mother," Thomas said. "Mama says Apache boys learn to ride at 4, Keemy said. "I'm 5. I'm late." Ayanna set down her fork. "Keemy, we don't stay long enough for lessons. But Mama, I need to know. What if we have to run again? I can't run fast, but I could ride fast." The logic was sound. Ayanna's face said she knew it. She looked at Thomas. "If he falls, you catch him." Thomas nodded. "If he breaks something, you fix him." "I will." "If he dies," Ayanna's voice went cold. "You die. Fair trade." Teaching Keemy to ride became the rhythm of their days. Every afternoon after Thomas finished checking fences and Ayanna finished mending or tanning hides, they would go to the corral. Thomas would bring out the oldest, gentlest mare, a brown and white paint named Sage, 20 years old, patient as stone. The first day Keemy was terrified. Thomas lifted him onto Sage's back. The boy's hands clutched the saddle horn so tight his knuckles went white. "She won't hurt you," Thomas said. "She's older than you and me combined, too tired for nonsense." Keem didn't let go. Thomas led Sage in a slow circle, 5 steps, 10. Keemy's breathing was fast, panicked. "Look at your mama," Thomas said. Keemy looked. Ayanna stood at the fence, arms crossed, face unreadable, but she was watching, fully present. "She's right there," Thomas said. "If you fall, she catches you, if I don't catch you first." Kimmy's grip loosened, slightly. By the third circle he was breathing normally. By the fifth circle he was smiling. "Mama, did you see I'm writing?" Ayana's expression softened. "Just for a moment. Just enough. I see, baby. You're doing good." That night Kimmy couldn't stop talking about horses, about how Sage's mane felt, how high up he was, how fast they could go if Thomas let them. "Tomorrow we go faster?" Kimmy asked at dinner. "Tomorrow we go a little faster," Thomas said. "Not too fast. Fast is how you get hurt." "Uncle Daniel went fast," Kimmy said. "Mama told me. He had a fast horse, a black one." The cabin went silent. Thomas looked at Ayana. She had frozen spoon halfway to her mouth. "Who's Uncle Daniel?" Thomas asked. His voice was carefully neutral. Kimmy looked confused. "My father. Mama says he died before I was born. She says he had a black horse and rode like wind." Ayana set down her spoon. "Kimmy, eat your food." "But Mama, you said I could talk about him when I was ready." "I'm ready now. Not tonight." "Why not?" "Because I said so." Kimmy's face fell. He ate in silence, hurt radiating off him in waves. After dinner, Thomas stepped outside. Needed air, needed distance from the sudden tension. Ayana followed him, shut the door behind her. Kimmy was inside getting ready for bed. His name was Daniel, Ayana said. No preamble, no context, just facts. Daniel Garrett, white trader. He came to my village in spring of 1870, selling blankets, tools. He had smile like sunrise, words like honey. Thomas kept his back to her, looked at the stars instead. "I was 17, Ayana continued. "Stupid. I thought love could cross borders. He said pretty things. Said he'd take me to California. Said our baby would be bridge between worlds. Then Cavalry came looking for traders who help Apache. He ran. Left me pregnant. My father found me crying in the grass. Took me home. I wore shame like second skin." "Why are you telling me this?" Thomas asked. "Because you asked who Daniel was. Now you know. He was beautiful liar, father of my son, and I hate him every day." Thomas turned to face her. She was crying, silent tears catching moonlight. "Where is he now, dead?" "Some Mexican trader told me 3 years ago. Daniel got drunk in Tucson, started fight with wrong man, died with knife in his belly." Ayana wiped her eyes, angry at the tears. "I should feel sad, but I just feel—" She paused. "Free, like ghost finally left." Thomas wanted to say something, comfort her, tell her it wasn't her fault, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead he just said, "Kimmy's a good kid. Because of me, not because of his father." "I know." They stood in the cold, not close, but not distant either, somewhere in between. "Does Kimmy know?" Thomas asked. "That his father ran? I told him his father died before he was born." Easier than truth. Truth always comes out. Ayana looked at him. "Then let it come when he's old enough to understand. Right now he's 5. He deserves to believe his father loved him." Thomas nodded. "Fair enough." They went back inside. The conversation settled like dust, unfinished but temporarily at rest. Week 2 brought small changes. Thomas started waking earlier. Not to beat Ayana, but to make coffee before she started praying. He didn't say anything about it, just left a cup beside her before stepping outside. She didn't thank him, but she drank it. Ayana stopped flinching when Thomas walked past. On day 8 he reached past her to grab a pan from the shelf. Their arms brushed. She didn't pull away, didn't react, just kept kneading bread dough like nothing happened. Thomas noticed, filed it away. They worked together more, not talking, just existing in the same space without friction. One afternoon a fence post broke. Thomas was replacing it when Ayana walked over, held the new post steady while he hammered. "You're doing it wrong," she said, Been building fences 10 years, and they keep breaking. Thomas paused, looked at her. Fair point. Show me. She showed him how Apache built corrals, deeper holes, stones packed around the base. It took longer, but it was stronger. They worked until sunset. When they finished, the fence was solid. Thomas tested it. Didn't budge. Better, he admitted. Ayanna almost smiled. Almost. That night Thomas played his harmonica for the first time in 5 years. He didn't plan to, just found it in his saddlebag while looking for leather oil. Held it, felt the weight, the memories attached. He put it to his lips, played a tune his mother taught him. Something slow, melancholic, about a soldier coming home. He didn't realize Ayanna was listening until he stopped. She was in her room, door cracked. He could see her shadow against the wall, still, listening. He played another song, then another. When he finally put the harmonica away, he heard her whisper something in Apache. He didn't ask for translation. Day 11 brought the first real conversation. They were sitting on the porch after dinner. Kime was asleep inside. The night was clear, cold, stars so bright they hurt to look at. Ayanna broke the silence. Why didn't you shoot that night? Thomas had been expecting the question, had been waiting for it since she walked back into his life. Because I knew it was wrong. But you didn't stop it. No, I didn't. Why? Thomas stared at his hands. They were scarred, calloused, the hands of a man who had built things and destroyed things in equal measure. My commanding officer gave the order, Thomas said. Told me to burn the empty lodges after everyone evacuated. I thought I was saving lives. Thought if I controlled the burning I could keep it contained, keep people safe. Ayanna's breathing changed. Faster, harder, but Lieutenant Hicks didn't wait. Thomas continued. While I was setting fire to a storage lodge, he started shooting. By the time I realized it was too late, I tried to stop him, punched him. He knocked me down, called me an Indian lover. Then he shot a girl. She was holding a baby. Ayanna made a sound. Small, broken. I didn't pull a trigger that night, Thomas said. But I might as well have. Because I wore the uniform. I followed the orders. I told myself I was doing the right thing while people died. That makes me guilty. Maybe more guilty than Hicks. Because he was just cruel. I was a coward. Silence. The girl Ayanna whispered. The one holding baby. What did she look like? Thomas closed his eyes. Saw her. Would always see her. Young. Maybe 15. Braids. Wearing a blue dress. She looked at me before Hicks shot her. Didn't scream. Didn't beg. Just looked. Like she was disappointed. That was my cousin, Ayanna said. Her name was Nasha. The baby was her sister's child. They both died. Thomas felt something crack in his chest. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. I know, but it's all I have. They sat in silence. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent. Do you regret it? Ayanna asked. Every day, every hour, every time I close my eyes. Good, Ayanna said. You should. I know. She looked at him, really looked, searching for something in his face. My father, she said. He told me once that some white men have Apache hearts trapped in white bodies, that they suffer because they don't belong anywhere. Are you one of those men? Thomas thought about it. Honest. I don't know. I don't feel like I belong anywhere, but I don't think I have an Apache heart. I think I just have a broken one. Ayanna nodded, slow, understanding. We are both broken then. Yeah, looks like it. A coyote howled in the distance. Another answered. Song of the desert. Why did you marry him? Thomas asked. You're Daniel. Ayanna laughed. Bitter. Because I was young and stupid. He said beautiful words. Made promises. I thought love didn't see color. But fear does. When Cavalry came, he ran. Left me with his baby and his lies. Did you love him? Ayanna considered. Yes. Once. Before I knew what love costs. Do you hate him every day? And every day I look at Kami and see Daniel's eyes, and I hate myself for loving something that looks like the man who abandoned me. Kami's not him. I know. But sometimes Ayana's voice broke. Sometimes I forget. Thomas wanted to reach out, touch her shoulder, offer comfort. But they weren't there yet. Might never be there. So he just sat beside her, in silence, in the cold. Two broken people watching stars. Day 14. Thomas was chopping wood behind the cabin. The pile was already high enough, but his hands needed work. His mind needed quiet. He heard footsteps, turned. Ayana stood there, holding something. A shirt. His shirt. The one he had torn on barbed wire last week. She had mended it. Perfect stitches. Invisible repairs. "I fix," she said. "You were going to throw away." Thomas took the shirt, examined the stitching. Professional. Better than it was new. "Thank you." Ayana shrugged. "You give me shelter. I give you this. Fair trade." She turned to leave. Thomas spoke without thinking. "Your husband. Daniel. Did he have family?" Ayana stopped. Didn't turn around. He said he had brother. Somewhere. But he never talk about him. Why you ask? Just curious. Ayana looked back over her shoulder. Curious is dangerous. I know. She left. Thomas stood holding the mended shirt, his mind working. Daniel Garrett, white trader, disappeared in 1871. Brother somewhere. Thomas had a brother named Daniel. Had. Past tense. Daniel Garrett had been a trader. Had disappeared in 1871. Thomas had spent 2 years looking for him. Assumed he was dead. Accepted it. Moved on. But what if? No. Coincidence. Garrett wasn't an uncommon name, plenty of Daniels in the territories. Thomas pushed the thought away, went back to chopping wood, but it stayed there, lurking, like a wolf in tall grass. Day 16 brought the confession neither of them wanted. Evening. Kami was asleep. Thomas and Ayana sat at the table. She was teaching him Apache words for desert plants. He was teaching her to read English better. An exchange. Mutual benefit. This one Ayana pointed at a sketch Thomas had made. "What is prickly pear?" Thomas said. "Cactus. You can eat the fruit." Ayana nodded. "We call nohui." Thomas repeated it. Badly. Ayana almost laughed at his pronunciation. "You sound like dying cow." "Thanks." They continued. "Agave. Mesquite. Sage." Then Ayana asked, "What is your brother's name?" Thomas looked up. "What you said your shoulder was shot by fellow soldier, but before you mentioned brother. What is his name?" Thomas set down his pencil. "Why?" "Just want to know." "You know my Daniel. I want to know your family." Thomas hesitated. Then Daniel. "My brother's name was Daniel." Ayana's hand stopped moving. He's dead. Died in 73. Tucson. Bar fight. The room went very cold. Ayana stood, slow. Her chair scraped against the floor. What was his full name? Thomas stood too, sensing danger. Daniel Garrett. Why Ayana backed away, shaking her head. No, that's not possible." "What's not possible?" "My husband," Ayana whispered. "My Daniel. His name was Daniel Garrett. Trader. He said he had brother. Soldier brother. He said brother didn't talk to him because he shamed the family." Thomas felt the floor tilt. "When did you marry him?" "Spring of 70. April. We're near Canyon de Muerto. My village." Thomas sat down hard. His mind was racing. His brother. His worthless, charming, lying brother. Had married an Apache woman. Had gotten her pregnant. Had abandoned her. And Thomas hadn't known. "You're his brother," Ayana said. "Not a question. A statement. You're Daniel's brother, which means Kami is your nephew." "Yes," Thomas said, voice hollow. "I didn't know. He never told me. I thought he was just running from debts, from trouble. I didn't know he left a family." Ayanna was crying now. Angry tears, betrayed tears. "You're his brother. All this time. You're his blood." "I didn't know," Thomas repeated. He stood, approached her. "Ayanna, I swear to you, I didn't know." She slapped him, hard, across the face. The sound cracked like gunfire. "You Garrett men," she spat. "All the same. Liars, cowards. Your brother left me to die. You watched my family die. Both of you guilty." Thomas didn't defend himself, just stood there, cheek burning. "You're right," he said. "We're the same." Daniel ran. I stood still. "Both sins." Ayanna was shaking. "Get out. This is my house." "Then I leave. Kami and I leave. Now." "It's dark. It's cold. You won't make it a mile." "I don't care. I won't stay with his brother. I won't let Kami be raised by another Garrett." She turned toward the bedroom. Thomas blocked her path. "Move," she hissed. "No." She reached for her knife. Thomas didn't flinch. "If you want to stab me, go ahead. But you're not taking Keem into that cold. Not again. You have no right. I have every right. He's my nephew. My blood. Daniel failed him. Failed you. But I won't." Ayanna's knife hand trembled. "Why should I believe you Garrett's lie?" "Because I'm still here," Thomas said. Daniel ran. "I'm staying. That's the difference. Prove it." "How stay? When snow melts? When I can leave? Ask me to stay. Prove you're not like him." Thomas looked into her eyes. Saw pain. Saw hope. Saw fear. "And if I ask and you say no, then you let me go. No chase. No force. Just let me go. Deal." They stood close. Too close. Ayanna lowered the knife. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know. I hate your brother more. I know that too. But Kami deserves to know that he has family. That someone stayed." Thomas nodded. "We tell him together. Tomorrow." Tomorrow, Thomas agreed. Ayanna went to the bedroom. Shut the door. Thomas stood alone in the main room. His brother's widow. His brother's son. Family he never knew he had. Responsibility he never asked for. But responsibility he would carry. Because Daniel had run, and Thomas was done running. They told Kime in the morning. Breakfast. Quiet. The boy sensed tension. "Mama, is something wrong?" Ayanna took his hand. "Baby, I need to tell you something. About your father." Kami's eyes went wide. "You said he died." "He did. But before he died he had family. He had a brother." Kami looked confused. "I have an uncle." Ayanna glanced at Thomas. He nodded. "Yes, baby, you have an uncle. And he's—" She swallowed hard. "He's here." Kami looked around the cabin, where Thomas knelt down. Eye level with the boy. "Here, Kami. I'm your uncle." Kami stared, processing. Those blue eyes, Daniel's eyes searching Thomas's face. "You're my papa's brother." "Yes. Did you know my papa?" "I did. A long time ago." "Was he good?" Thomas chose his words carefully. "He was charming, smart. He could talk his way out of anything." "Did he love my mama?" Thomas looked at Ayanna. She nodded permission. "Yes," Thomas said. "I think he did. But he was scared. And when he got scared, he ran. That was his weakness. Did he Kami's voice got smaller? Did he know about me? He knew your mama was going to have a baby. But he left before you were born." Kami processed this, eyes welling up. "So he didn't want me." Ayanna pulled him close. "Baby, no. It wasn't about want. Your father was broken. He didn't know how to stay. That's his failure, not yours." Kami cried. Quiet tears. The kind children cry when they learn the world is harder than they thought. Thomas felt something shift in his chest. Protective. Fierce. Thomas said. "Your father left. That's true. But I'm here now, and I don't leave." Keem looked up. "Promise." Thomas hesitated. He didn't make promises lightly. Promises were debts, and debts came due. But looking at this boy, this child who shared his blood, who had his brother's eyes and his mother's courage, he couldn't walk away. Promise, Thomas said. Kame hugged him, sudden, desperate. Thomas froze. He wasn't good at hugs, at affection, at being human. But slowly, carefully, he put his arms around the boy. Ayanna watched, her expression unreadable. The days after the revelation were strange. Kame started calling Thomas Uncle Tom. Thomas cringed every time, but he allowed it. Ayanna was distant, polite, but something had closed off again. Like knowing Thomas was Daniel's brother made him guilty by association. Thomas understood, didn't fight it. But on day 19 something changed. Thomas was in the barn treating Bess's leg. The swelling had finally gone down. The mare was healing. Ayanna appeared in the doorway. Silent. Watching. She does better, Ayanna observed. Yeah. Another week and she'll be sound. Ayanna stepped inside, ran her hand along Bess's neck. The mare nickered, leaned into the touch. You're good with animals, Ayanna said. Better than with people. Animals don't lie. People lie because they're scared. Thomas looked at her. Is that why Daniel lied? Ayanna's hand stilled. Maybe. Or maybe he just didn't care. You think I'm like him? Ayanna met his eyes. No. You're different. You stand still. He ran. You face guilt. He drank it away. You're broken. He was just... She paused. Empty. That's almost a compliment. Almost. They worked in silence. Thomas cleaning tools. Ayanna checking the other horses. Then she spoke. Soft. Almost too quiet to hear. When snow melts, I take Kimi to Fort McDowell. Find Daniel's old friends. See if anyone remembers him. Then I decide. Decide what? Whether to stay in White World or go back to what's left of Apache World. What if neither wants you? Then I make New World. Just me and Kimi. Thomas nodded. Fair enough. But Ayanna continued. Until then we stay. We work. She struggled with the word. We try. Try what to be family, even if broken one. Thomas felt something warm in his chest. Unfamiliar. Uncomfortable. But not bad. Yeah, he said. We try. Ayanna almost smiled. They returned to the cabin as the sun set. Kimi was waiting on the porch. Uncle Tom. Mama, look what I found. He held up a rabbit. Dead. Neck snapped clean. I caught it, all by myself. Can we cook it? Thomas examined the rabbit. Clean kill. No struggle. You set a snare. Kimi nodded eagerly. Like you showed me. Thomas had shown him 3 days ago. Hadn't expected the boy to remember, much less succeed. Good work, Thomas said. We'll roast it for dinner. Kimi beamed. That night they ate rabbit cooked Apache style. Ayanna had added desert herbs, made it taste like something more than survival. Kimi talked non-stop, about trapping, about horses, about wanting to learn to shoot. Thomas listened, actually listened, not just waiting for silence. Ayanna watched them. Thomas could feel her eyes, evaluating, calculating, testing to see if he would stay. He would. He didn't know how to tell her. So he just stayed. Day 21 brought visitors. Thomas was outside splitting wood when he heard hoofbeats. Fast. Urgent. He grabbed his rifle, positioned himself between the approaching rider and the cabin. Ayanna appeared in the doorway, Kimi behind her. Inside, Thomas ordered, "Now." They obeyed. The rider came into view. Mexican, middle-aged, riding hard. Thomas recognized him. Carlos, a trader who worked the territories between Arizona and Sonora. Honest man, usually. Carlos reined his horse to a stop, nearly fell off, spooked. Senor Garrett. Carlos gasped. You must listen. What's wrong, soldiers? Coming from Fort Lowell. 20 men, maybe more. looking for Apache woman and child. Thomas's blood went cold. Why they say she is witness. The Canyon de Muerto massacre. Someone in Washington reopened investigation. They need her testimony. Against who? Against Colonel William Hicks, the officer who led raid. He's up for promotion to general, but someone filed complaint. They need witnesses to prove he ordered the killing. Thomas's mind raced. Hicks, the man who shot the girl, who called Thomas an Indian lover, who smiled while people burned. If Ayanna testified, Hicks would go to prison. If Ayanna testified, she would become a target. Where are they now? Thomas asked. Half-day's ride, maybe less. I came fast to warn you. Why warn me? Carlos looked uncomfortable. Because I know you, senor. You're a good man. You help people. I don't want soldiers to... He paused. To make you choose. Between what and what? Between honor and survival. Thomas looked back at the cabin. Ayanna stood in the window, watching. Tell me something, Carlos. If they find her, what happens? They take her to Fort Lowell, put her in protective custody until trial. But Carlos lowered his voice. Hicks has men, loyal men, men who don't want trial. If I was her, I would run, far and fast. And if I hide her, then you hang beside her, harboring fugitive, interfering with federal investigation. They will destroy you. Carlos pulled his horse around. I said nothing. Senor, we never spoke. Vaya con Dios. He rode off. Thomas stood in the yard, rifle in hand, decision weighing on him like stone. He could tell Ayanna to run, give her a horse, supplies, point her toward Mexico, never see her again. Or he could fight. 5 years ago he had chosen silence, chosen to watch instead of act, chosen survival over honor. He walked into the cabin. Ayanna had heard everything. Her face was pale. I run, she said, tonight, before they come. No, Thomas said. No. Her eyes flashed. You heard him. They will hang you. Then they hang me. Kimi started crying. Uncle Tom, don't die. Thomas knelt down, took the boy's face in his hands. I'm not dying, kid. But I'm not running either. He looked at Ayanna. 5 years ago I chose silence. I chose to watch instead of act. I won't make that choice again. This will destroy you. I'm already destroyed, but maybe I can build something from the ruins. He stood. Started loading rifles. What are you doing? Ayanna asked. Making a stand. If they want you, they go through me. You're insane. Probably. But I'm done being a coward. Ayanna stepped close, eyes searching his face. Why fight for me? For Keme? We're nothing to you. You're not nothing. You're... Thomas struggled with the word. Family. Broken family. But family. Ayanna's eyes filled with tears. You're just like your brother, making promises you can't keep. I keep my promises. Daniel didn't. That's the difference. Prove it. How fight? Stay. Don't run when it gets hard. I'm not running. Ayanna looked at him. Really looked. Then she picked up a rifle. Then we fight together. Kimi tugged Thomas's sleeve. Can I help? You can help by staying alive. That's the most important job. Okay, Uncle Tom. They worked through the night, barricading windows, loading weapons, preparing. At dawn the soldiers would come, and Thomas Garrett, former cavalry captain, would stand against his own kind, for a woman who hated him, for a boy who trusted him, for a family he never knew he wanted. Outside the snow began to melt. Spring was coming, but first there would be blood. They had 8 hours until dawn. Thomas stood in the center of the cabin, rifle in one hand, a map of his property spread across the table with the other, Ayanna beside him. Kemi sleeping in the bedroom, exhausted from crying. The boy didn't understand why the bad men were coming. He only understood that Uncle Tom and Mama were scared. And they were scared. Not of dying. Both of them had made peace with death long ago. But of failing. Of leaving Kimi alone in a world that would reject him for being too white and too Apache at the same time. We can't fight 20 soldiers, Ayanna said. Her voice was steady, factual. She had moved past panic into the cold clarity that came before battle. Not with 2 rifles and old cavalry tactics. Thomas studied the map. His property was defensible if you knew the land. The cabin sat in a natural depression protected on 3 sides by rock formations. Only one clear approach from the south. But that same geography that protected them could trap them. We don't fight them head-on, Thomas said. We make them think twice about the cost. How Apache tactics. Your people survived centuries because you fought smarter, not harder. Ayanna looked at him, surprised. You want to fight like Apache, I want to survive. And your people are the best survivors I know. She studied the map, traced the southern approach with one finger. We fortify the cabin, block the main door, create firing positions at windows. But we also need escape route. Agreed. She pointed to the back room. Kimi's room. We dig tunnel, under the wall, comes out behind that rock formation. If they use fire or cannon, we run. In 8 hours, Thomas asked. My people dug all night to survive cavalry. We can do same. Thomas nodded. He grabbed shovels from the shed. They moved Kimi to the main room wrapped in blankets by the fire. The boy didn't wake. Good. They started digging. The ground was hard, frozen in places. But desperation made them strong. Thomas worked with the fury of a man trying to outrun his past. Ayanna worked with the precision of a woman who had already lost everything once. They didn't talk, just dug. Dirt piling up, hands blistering, backs screaming. After 2 hours they had a tunnel 3 feet deep and 5 feet long. Not enough. They kept going. While they worked, Thomas's mind turned over the situation. 20 soldiers, led by who? Some lieutenant following orders, or someone with a personal stake. And why now Canyon de Muerto was 5 years ago? Why reopen the investigation? Unless someone powerful wanted Hicks gone. Someone in Washington. Someone who saw the Indian Wars ending and wanted scapegoats, wanted to look progressive, wanted to sacrifice a colonel to save the Army's reputation. Politics. Always politics. But that meant Ayanna was valuable. A witness who could bring down a war hero, which meant Hicks would do anything to silence her. This wasn't a retrieval mission. This was an execution. Thomas, Ayanna said. Her voice pulled him from his thoughts. Look, she had broken through. The tunnel opened behind the cabin hidden by the rock formation. Perfect. They climbed out. Surveyed the escape route. It led to a dry creek bed that wound north toward the mountains. If they ran, they could disappear into the high country, but running meant leaving everything. The ranch, the horses, the fragile family they had built. Thomas looked at Ayanna. She was thinking the same thing. We could go now, he said, right now. Take Kami and ride north, be gone before they arrive. Ayanna shook her head. They will follow, they will hunt, better to fight here. Where we choose ground. You sure know. But I'm tired of running. Thomas understood. Running was survival. Standing was living. They returned to the cabin. 4 hours until dawn. They set traps on the southern approach. Simple things. Tripwires connected to pots and pans. Would make noise. Alert them. By seconds. They moved furniture against the door. Heavy oak table. Iron stove. Created a barricade. They loaded every rifle, every pistol. Counted ammunition. 47 rounds. Not enough for a sustained fight, but enough to make a statement. We need to make every shot count, Thomas said. I always do. They created firing positions at the windows, used sacks of grain for cover, knocked out panes for clear sight lines. The cabin transformed from home to fortress. At midnight they stopped, sat on the floor, backs against the wall, breathing hard. Kimi stirred, opened his eyes, saw them. Mama, Uncle Tom. Are the bad men here? Not yet, baby. Ayanna said. Go back to sleep. I'm scared. Thomas moved closer, knelt beside the boy. Being scared is smart. Means you're paying attention. Will you protect us? Thomas met Ayana's eyes over Keme's head. She nodded. Permission. Trust. Yes, Thomas said. I will. Promise. Promise. Keme closed his eyes, drifted back to sleep. Trusting. Believing. Thomas stood, walked to the window, stared into darkness. Ayana joined him. They stood side by side, not touching, but close. You don't have to do this, she said. You could tell them I forced you. That you're victim. Save yourself. No. Why not? Because I've saved myself enough. Time to save someone else. She looked at him. In the dim light, her face was soft, vulnerable. If we die today, she said, I want you to know something. What I don't hate you anymore. Thomas felt something break open in his chest, something warm, painful, like blood returning to a frozen limb. I don't hate me anymore either, he said, thanks to you. She touched his hand, brief, fleeting, but intentional. Then she pulled away, checked her rifle. They have 2 hours, Ayana said. We should rest. Neither of them rested. They sat in the darkness, waiting, listening. 2 broken people about to fight the world for a child who belonged to neither of them and both of them. The night pressed against the windows, and somewhere in the distance, hoofbeats. They came at dawn. Thomas heard them first, the jingle of bits, the creak of leather, the low voices of men who thought they were unheard. He touched Ayana's shoulder. She was already awake, already moving. Keme, she whispered, wake up, baby. Quiet. The boy woke, groggy, confused. Ayana wrapped him in a blanket, positioned him in the corner furthest from the windows, safest spot in the cabin. Stay down, she ordered. No matter what happens, stay down. Okay, Mama. Thomas moved to the front window, peered through a crack in the shutters. 23 soldiers, more than Carlos said. They were dismounting 100 yards out, forming up, professional, disciplined. Leading them was a man in an officer's coat, too fancy for a lieutenant. This was someone important. Thomas's stomach dropped. Colonel William Hicks, the man himself, not sending subordinates, coming personally, which meant this wasn't official. This was personal. Ayana joined Thomas at the window, saw Hicks. Her face went white. That's him, she whispered. The man who killed my cousin, who ordered the massacre. Thomas nodded. He's here to finish what he started. We can't fight a colonel and 23 men. No, but we can make him bleed. Hicks's voice carried across the distance, amplified by the morning silence. Thomas Garrett. I know you're in there. You're harboring a fugitive wanted for questioning. Send out the Apache woman and we'll leave peacefully. Thomas opened the window, just enough for his voice to carry. She's not a fugitive. She's a witness. She's a hostile, Hicks shouted back. Her village attacked a supply train. We acted in self-defense. Liar, Ayana hissed. Thomas called back. There was no supply train. You massacred a winter camp. Women and children. Those are enemy combatants under territorial law. Now send her out or we'll burn you out. Thomas fired a warning shot, high, over their heads. The soldiers scattered, took cover behind rocks and scrub. Hicks didn't move, just smiled. Cold, predatory. Garrett, you're committing treason. You'll hang for this. Then I'll hang. But you'll bleed first. Hicks turned to his men. Prepare to advance. Use fire if necessary. Thomas closed the shutter, looked at Ayana. They're coming. She nodded, positioned herself at the side window, sighted down her rifle. When they come, she said, we aim for legs. We wound, not kill. Killing brings more killing. Agreed. The soldiers advanced, spread out, using cover, moving tactically. Thomas picked his target, a corporal on the left flank. Exposed for a moment, he fired. The corporal went down, screaming, leg wound, Just as planned. Ayana fired. Another soldier dropped, clutching his thigh. The advance stopped. Soldiers retreated behind cover. Hicks's voice, furious. "Return fire! Suppress that window!" Bullets slammed into the cabin, splintering wood, shattering the remaining glass. Thomas and Ayana ducked. Kame screamed. "It's okay, baby," Ayana shouted over the gunfire. "Stay down!" The fusillade lasted 30 seconds, then stopped. Silence. Thomas risked a look. The soldiers were regrouping, 3 wounded, but 20 still combat effective. Not good odds. Hicks called out again. "Garrett, last chance. Send out the woman and the child. No one else has to die." "Child." Thomas looked at Ayana. "He wants Kime too." Her face went savage. "Over my dead body. Might come to that. Then it comes." She fired again, clipped a soldier behind a rock. He fell back, cursing. The soldiers prepared another assault. Thomas counted ammunition. 28 rounds left. He heard something. Faint. From the north. Hoofbeats. Different from before. Lighter. Faster. He looked. 5 riders cresting the ridge. Not cavalry. Apache. Leading them was a woman. Young. Fierce. Riding like she was born on horseback. Thomas's breath caught. Ayana saw them too. Gasped. "Nasha." "Who?" "My cousin. The one your Hicks shot. She's alive. But you said she died. I saw her fall. I thought." Ayana's voice broke. "I thought she was dead." The Apache riders didn't slow. They charged straight at the cavalry's rear position. Gunfire erupted, but from the cavalry's back. Confusion. Hicks spun. What the hell? The Apache warriors hit the cavalry line like a thunderstorm, not trying to kill, trying to scatter, break formation, create chaos. It worked. Soldiers turned to face the new threat, divided their attention, lost cohesion. Nasha's voice carried, sharp, commanding, in Apache. Ayana translated. "She says you killed our family white devils. Now we kill you." Thomas saw an opening. The cavalry was caught between the cabin and the Apache riders. Pinned. Now he said. While they're distracted, he and Ayana fired in sequence. Controlled. Deliberate. 4 more soldiers went down. Wounded, not dead. The cavalry broke. Started retreating. Hicks screamed orders. "Hold position. Do not retreat." But fear was contagious. The soldiers ran, mounted their horses, fled south. Nasha's warriors pursued for 100 yards, then stopped. Let them run. The Apache riders circled back, approached the cabin slowly, hands visible, showing they meant no harm. Thomas stepped outside, rifle lowered but ready. Nasha dismounted. She was maybe 24, scarred. One arm hung at an odd angle, broken and healed wrong, but her eyes were fire. She looked at Thomas, spoke in Apache. Ayana emerged from the cabin, translated. "She says you're the soldier who didn't shoot. She remembers you." Thomas stared. "You were there, at Cañon de Muerto." Nasha spoke again. Ayana translated. "She was hiding in rocks. Saw you punch the officer. Saw you try to stop it. You distracted them long enough for her to escape. She says you saved 1 life that night." Thomas felt something in his throat. Thick. Choking. 1 life wasn't enough. Nasha stepped closer, placed her hand on his chest, over his heart, spoke directly to him in broken English. "You. Not guilty. You tried." Thomas shook his head. "I didn't try hard enough. Nobody try hard enough." Nasha's eyes were wet. "But you tried. That more than others." She turned to Ayana. They embraced. Fierce. Desperate. 2 survivors finding each other in the wreckage. "I thought you were dead," Ayana sobbed. "I thought same about you, cousin." They held each other. Years of grief pouring out. Nasha pulled back, looked at the cabin, at Keme watching from the window. "That your son?" "Yes. He looks like white man. He is half white. His father abandoned us. Nasha's face hardened. Then his father was fool. She approached the window, knelt to Kame's eye level. You are Ayana's son. That makes you family. You understand? Kame nodded, uncertain. Good. You protect your mama. She is strong, but strong people need protecting too. I will, Kame said. Nasha stood, turned to Thomas and Ayana. Soldiers will come back, with more men. You can't stay here. Thomas knew she was right. But where do we go, Nasha considered. Fort Lowell. Turn yourselves in. But to Federal Marshal, not to Army. What Federal Marshal? There is investigation. From Washington. They want justice for massacres. Real justice. Hicks is target. You are witness who can destroy him. How do you know this? Nasha smiled. Grim. Because I already testified, 2 weeks ago. I told them everything. Now they need you to confirm. Thomas looked at Ayana. This is our chance, to make Hicks pay. Or to die trying, Ayana said. Nasha interrupted. Marshal Thompson, he is good man, fair man, he protects witnesses. You go to him, not to Army. Before Thomas could respond, more hoofbeats. Everyone tensed. But this wasn't soldiers. A group of riders approached from the east, 15 men, not military, civilian clothes, but wearing badges. Leading them was a man in his 40s, weathered, competent. He raised a hand, peaceful gesture. Federal Marshal Thompson, he called out. Nobody moves. The marshal and his men surrounded the area, not aggressive, but firm. Thompson dismounted, walked toward the cabin, eyes on Thomas. Thomas Garrett. That's me. I have a federal warrant for the arrest of Colonel William Hicks. War crimes, unlawful orders, mass murder of non-combatants. Where is he? He was here. Thomas pointed south. Fled 20 minutes ago, with his men. Thompson cursed, turned to his deputies. Ride them down, bring Hicks back alive. The rest can go. The deputies mounted up, rode south. Thompson turned to Ayana. You're Ayana, survivor of Canyon de Muerto. Yes. Ma'am, I need your testimony. There's a congressional committee in Washington investigating Army conduct. Your account could prevent future massacres. And if I refuse, then Hicks walks free, gets promoted. Does this again, your choice. Ayana looked at Thomas. What do you think Thomas thought about the girl Hicks shot? About Nasha's scars? About all the people who died because good men stayed silent? I think you've been running long enough, he said. Maybe it's time to fight different. Not with bullets. With truth. Nasha stepped forward. I testified. It was hard, but necessary. You should too, cousin. Ayana closed her eyes, took a breath. I testify, but I have condition. Thompson nodded. Name it. Thomas Garrett testifies too. He was there. He saw everything. He tried to stop it. Thompson looked at Thomas. This true, yes. Thomas felt the weight of 5 years lifting. I was there. I saw Hicks order the killing. I tried to intervene. He threatened to court-martial me. Then you're both witnesses. Thompson pulled out papers. Trial starts in 3 weeks. Fort Lowell. We'll provide protection. Protection from who Thomas asked, from Hicks's friends, from officers who don't want this exposed, from anyone who profits from silence. A deputy rode back, fast, shouting. Marshal, we got him. Hicks and 5 of his men surrendered without fight. Thompson smiled. Grim satisfaction. Good. Take them to Fort Lowell. Maximum security. No visitors. The deputy rode off. Thompson turned back to Thomas and Ayana. Pack what you need. We leave in an hour. You'll be under federal protection until trial. Wait, Thomas said. His mind was racing. There's something you should know. Thompson raised an eyebrow. What, my brother? Daniel Garrett. He married Ayana 5 years ago. Abandoned her pregnant. Died in 73. Thompson frowned. Why is this relevant? Because the boy. Kame. He's my nephew. My blood. If something happens to Ayana, I want custody. Thompson studied Thomas. Then Ayana. This true ma'am. Ayanna nodded. Daniel was his brother. I didn't know until 2 weeks ago. Thompson pulled out a notebook, wrote something down. I'll make note in the record. If you testify and survive custody, won't be an issue. But if something happens, he looked at Thomas, you'll be guardian. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This trial will destroy you both. Hicks has friends, money, power. They'll call you liars, traitors. They'll drag your names through mud. Thomas looked at Ayanna. She looked back. We survived worse, she said. 3 weeks later, Fort Lowell Courthouse was packed, every seat filled. Reporters from New York, Boston, San Francisco, senators from Washington, officers from every fort in the territories. This wasn't just a trial. This was theater. The death of the Indian Wars, the birth of a new policy. And at the center, Colonel William Hicks, sitting straight, defiant, decorated uniform spotless. Thomas sat in the witness gallery, Ayanna beside him, Kame with Nasha in the back. Safe. The prosecution called Ayanna first. She walked to the stand. Slow, dignified, wearing traditional Apache dress. A statement. She wasn't trying to assimilate. She was Apache, and proud. The prosecutor was a young lawyer from Washington, ambitious, smart. State your name for the record. Ayanna, of the Chiricahua Apache. I have no white name. Where were you on November 15, 1871? At my village. Cañon de Muerto. We were preparing for winter ceremony. What happened that day? Cavalry came, led by that man. She pointed at Hicks. He ordered his soldiers to kill everyone. The courtroom erupted. Hicks's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Hearsay. She can't know what orders were given. The judge, a stern man named Harrison, raised his hand. Overruled. She's testifying to what she witnessed. Continue. Ayanna spoke for 2 hours. Every detail, every horror. She described finding her father's body, her mother's, the baby's, the elders'. She didn't cry. Her voice stayed level, factual, which made it worse. The courtroom was silent. Reporters wrote frantically. When she finished, Hicks's lawyer stood. Mrs. He paused. What is your name? I told you. Ayanna. Are you a U.S. citizen? No. Then why should this court believe the testimony of a foreign hostile? Ayanna looked at him. No fear, no anger, just tired. Because I watched your soldiers kill my family while they prayed, because I found my mother with bullet in her back, because I am still here, and you cannot silence dead. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge banged his gavel. Order. Next, Thomas was called. He walked to the stand, wearing his old cavalry uniform. Also a statement. He wasn't hiding what he was. He was owning it. He testified for 3 hours, corroborated everything Ayanna said, named names, described Hicks's orders, admitted his own cowardice. When asked why he didn't stop the massacre, Thomas didn't make excuses. Because I was afraid. Afraid of court-martial. Afraid of my commanding officer. Afraid of standing alone. That fear cost lives. I can't change that, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again. Hicks's lawyer tried to break him. You're confessing to complicity in war crimes. You understand you could be imprisoned. Yes. Why come forward now? Thomas looked at Ayanna in the gallery. She was watching him, trusting him. Because I met someone who taught me surviving isn't the same as living, and I'm tired of just surviving. The trial lasted 1 week. The verdict came on day 8, guilty on all counts. Hicks showed no emotion, just stared straight ahead as the judge read the sentence. 20 years hard labor, dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of all rank and pension. But Thomas's verdict came separately. The judge looked at him, stern, measuring. Mr. Garrett, you've confessed to being present during the commission of war crimes. However, evidence shows you attempted to intervene. You struck a superior officer to prevent further violence, and you've cooperated fully with this investigation. Thomas stood, ready for prison. I find you not guilty by reason of attempted intervention. However, you'll be dishonorably discharged from any reserve status, and you'll pay restitution to surviving families. Thomas felt his knees weaken. not guilty. He had expected punishment, deserved it, but the law was granting mercy he didn't deserve. The judge continued. Furthermore, Ayanna of the Chiricahua Apache is granted full U.S. citizenship and reparations from the federal government, as are all survivors of Cañon de Muerto. The courtroom exploded, cheering, shouting, chaos. Thomas looked at Ayanna. She was crying. Relief, joy, justice. They had won. Not completely. The dead were still dead. The pain was still real. But Hicks would never hurt anyone again. And that was something. Outside the courthouse, Nasha waited. She approached Ayanna. They spoke in Apache. Thomas didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Nasha wanted Ayanna to come home, to help rebuild the village, to return to her people. Her gaze shifted from Kime to Thomas. "What do you want, Kime?" she asked. "I want to stay with Uncle Tom." Over the next few days, Kime struggled with his new knowledge. One afternoon, while Thomas taught him to load a rifle, Kime asked, "Uncle Tom, am I Apache or white?" Thomas set down the gun. "What do you think?" "Mama says I'm Apache, but I have eyes like Papa, like you." "And?" Kime's small face scrunched in concentration. "And I think I'm both. Like a bridge. That's what Papa wanted, right?" Thomas felt something catch in his throat. "Yeah, kid. That's exactly right. You're not half of anything. You're double. You get the best of both." Kime smiled, small but genuine. "I like being double." "Me too, kid. Me too." Nasha's face hardened. "He's white. He'll never understand you." "He's family," Kime said. "Simple. Final." Nasha turned to Ayanna. "And what do you want, cousin? I don't know." Thomas stepped back, giving them space. This was Ayanna's choice. He wouldn't influence it. But Ayanna looked at him. "What do you want, Thomas?" Thomas had never been good with words, with feelings. But looking at this woman, this fierce, broken, beautiful woman who had survived hell and still chose to hope. "I want you to stay. But I don't have the right to ask." "Why not?" "Because I took your family. I don't deserve to be part of your new one." Ayanna stepped closer. "You didn't take anything. The world took. You were just there. But you're here now. That's what matters." Thomas felt something crack open. Years of guilt, shame, self-hatred, draining away. "I can't give you back what you lost. No one can. But you can help me build something new. If you want." Thomas looked into her eyes, saw the question, saw the hope, saw the risk. "I want. God help me. I want." Ayanna smiled. First real smile he had seen from her. "Then stay." She kissed him. Not passionate, not desperate. Just simple. True. A promise. Kime cheered from the courthouse steps. Uncle Tom and Mama kissed. Nasha watched, disapproved, but didn't interfere. She approached Thomas, looked him in the eye. "You hurt her, I kill you." "Fair enough. You fail her, I kill you." "Understood. You make her cry, I kill you." Thomas almost smiled. "I get the pattern." "Good." Nasha turned to Ayanna. "I don't approve. But you're grown. You choose your path. I'll visit. Make sure he treats you right." "Thank you, cousin." Nasha mounted her horse, rode away with her warriors. Thomas, Ayanna, and Kime stood alone on the courthouse steps. "Now what?" Thomas asked. "Now we go home," Ayanna said. "To the ranch. We build. We heal. We live. Together. Together." But that night in the hotel, something unexpected arrived. A messenger, official-looking, from the courthouse. "Mr. Garrett, I have a letter for you. It was being held in evidence. Court just released it." Thomas took the envelope. Old, stained, dated 1873. The handwriting was familiar. Daniel's handwriting. Thomas's hands shook. He opened it. Ayanna watched, concerned. "What is it? A letter?" "From my brother. Written before he died." He read aloud. "Tom, If you get this, I'm probably dead. I'm writing from Tucson. I'm sick. Not body. Soul. I need you to know something. That Apache girl I left. Ayanna. She had my son. I was too coward to stay. But I'm not too coward to admit I loved her. I loved them both. If you ever find them, tell her I'm sorry. Tell my son I was a fool. And if you have any decency left, protect them. Because I didn't. And that's the worst thing I ever did. Not running from cavalry, not lying, but leaving the only people who ever really mattered. Don't be like me, Tom. Don't run. Stay. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Your brother Daniel. Silence. Ayanna was crying. He loved us. Thomas folded the letter. Yes, he did. He just didn't know how to show it. Ayanna looked at Kimi, sleeping peacefully on the bed. Your father loved you, baby. He was just broken. But you're not broken. You're whole. She turned to Thomas. Thank you. For finding this. For showing me. I didn't find it. Daniel did. 5 years too late. But he found it. Thomas put the letter in his pocket, walked to the window, looked at the stars. Ayanna joined him. We're all broken. All of us. Daniel, you, me. But maybe broken things can still build something whole. Thomas took her hand. Maybe. They stood together. Two broken people. One impossible child. Building a family from wreckage. 6 months later. Spring had come to Arizona. The ranch looked different. Better. Ayanna had planted a garden. Desert plants that could survive the heat. Thomas had built a second room. For Kimi. The boy needed his own space. And they had built something else. A small schoolhouse. 1 room. 6 desks. They taught both Apache and white children. Reading, writing, math, Apache language, white language, history that didn't erase either side. It was controversial. The town of Silver Creek didn't approve. Neither did some Apache leaders. But the children came anyway. Hungry to learn. Hungry to build bridges their parents burned. Kimi was the star pupil. Fluent in both languages. Comfortable in both worlds. The bridge Daniel talked about. But real. Thomas stood on the porch one evening, watching the sunset. Ayanna joined him. They did this every night. Watched the sky change colors. Didn't talk. Just existed together. Nasha visits next week, Ayanna said. She wants to see how school is going. She still doesn't trust me, Thomas said. She's getting there. Last time she only threatened to kill you twice. Improvement. They laughed. Soft. Comfortable. Kimi ran out of the schoolhouse, book in hand. Uncle Tom. Mama, I finished the whole book by myself. That's wonderful, baby, Ayanna said. Can I get another one? Thomas smiled. Library's full. Take your pick. Kimi ran back inside. Happy, safe, loved. He looks like Daniel, Ayanna said. But he doesn't act like him. No, he acts like you. Brave, strong, stubborn. I'm not brave. Thomas looked at her. You testified against a colonel. You rebuilt a life from nothing. You forgave a man who wore the uniform that killed your family. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Ayanna leaned against him. He put his arm around her. They had gotten married 2 months ago. Small ceremony. Apache and Christian mixed. Nasha attended. Disapproving but present. It wasn't a fairy tale. They still had nightmares. Still argued. Still carried scars. But they carried them together. Do you regret it? Thomas asked. Choosing this. Choosing me. Every day, Ayanna said. Thomas stiffened. She smiled. Teasing. Every day I regret that I didn't find you sooner. He relaxed. Pulled her closer. The sun set. The sky turned purple. Orange. Red. And on the porch of a small ranch in the Arizona desert, a former cavalry captain and an Apache widow watched the day end. Their son not by blood, but by choice, reading inside. Their school small but growing a bridge between worlds. Their life broken but healing. They had survived the winter. Now they were learning to live. and in the distance, barely visible against the horizon, riders approached. Not cavalry, not enemies, just travelers, lost, looking for shelter. Thomas saw them, looked at Ayanna. She nodded. He stepped off the porch, walked to meet them, because that's what they did now. They didn't turn away the lost. They didn't watch people die. They helped, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The Garrett Ranch, where the door was always open, where broken things became whole, where a widow and a soldier built a family from wreckage, and where every night the stars watched over a small boy who belonged to two worlds and rejected by neither. Because he had parents who taught him belonging wasn't about blood. It was about choice, and they chose him, every single day. The end.